Why I think it's important that we all become civically engaged. When you live in a community, you should always have not only what's in the best interest of you and your family, but what's in the best interest of your community. Because your community will sustain you when nothing else will. So when we go out to vote, people say, I'm not gonna vote. Let me tell you something. You vote for this reason. If you don't vote, the day after election day, you still gonna be paying taxes. Judges are still gonna get on the bench, and laws are still gonna be made, whether you vote or not. You vote so that the money that will be spent, your tax dollars, will be spent in your community on things that are important to you and your community.
All elections are important. Let's make no mistake about it. But this election is critical. This election is about our democracy. But more so, when you go vote this time, don't just stop at the presidential side. Candidates on the bottom of that ballot, they are more important to you than the candidate at the presidential level.
That's right.
And this election, if you don't think the things that are being said, that they are not real, I empower you, I ask you, I inspire you, I encourage you, I motivate you to go research for yourself. Don't take my word on it. If you don't go vote, I get to vote for you. I may not vote for the candidate that you want. So when you sit at home and say they're gonna do whatever they're gonna do what they want to do, you're right, I'm gonna vote for who I want to vote for because you're sitting at home and not going vote. So please go vote. We don't care who you vote for, but we ask you to go vote.
Job is to tell you how to vote and how you go into the polls. Okay, you've made a vote plan. Where do you vote? When to vote? And who to vote for? You have your sample ballot in your hand, or your cheat sheet as we would call it. The first person you meet is a friendly greeter who will say to you, please silence your phone and put it away. No electronic devices are allowed in the vote center. Only paper items such as a sample ballot or pamphlets. Oh, by the way, you cannot wear any candidate's paraphernalia or party affiliations into the vote centers within 100 feet from the poll, from the poll. You are directed to the qualifying table. The clerk asks you for your ID. You have a choice of 7 different types of ID.
Talk about voting and being civically engaged. I'm doing this because my parents did not get a chance to cast a ballot until they were 50 years old. They had lived in this country for half a century, and they weren't allowed to vote and engage in the political process. The 1965 Voting Rights Act facilitated that. And so that's why I think it's important. My father had gotten drafted in World War II to go fight for freedom and democracy around the world, yet he had no say, no voice, no input in the political process of the country in which he lived and had lived all of his life. But he was asked to go take up arms and fight people he didn't know for freedom and democracy for them, not for himself. And so that is why. And so as a result of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, passed in response to the Selma to Montgomery March and the terror that took place on the Bridge to Freedom, that is why. And the 1965 Voting Rights, and my parents voted in every election, and my mom more recently, she died in 2021, she was 103 years old. She cast her last ballot in November 2020, and I'm going to tell you this because it's important, and I want you to remember and think about it in terms of the power of the vote. She got her vote by mail ballot the day before the election, although she had requested it earlier. My sister got in the car and drove 150 miles to turn in that vote by mail ballot. So in November 2020, she cast her last ballot because she died in January 2021. So I am proud of that. I'm advocating for every voice to be heard in our democracy, because democracy is not a spectator sport where you have the luxury of sitting on the sidelines or sitting in the bleachers and watch as events unfold on the floor. But it's a gladiator sport. You gotta get in that arena and you gotta fight for the things that you believe in. If you want equality, you want equity, you want justice, you've got to fight for it. And the way you fight for it, first and foremost, is by casting a ballot at the ballot box, because you get to decide what policy, what representative. This is the representative democracy. So you get to decide who you want to represent you and your interests and your family and your future at the ballot box. Thank you. That is it.
We don't have time to sit on the sidelines. We have to get in the game this time around. And I will even tell you that what's in your voter's playbook. I told you we were going to come back to that. And if my technology person will help me, number one, you need to have printed your personal sample ballot. If you don't have that, they have them available today. Am I correct? If you have not received one, please, before you leave here today, get a sample ballot. Then one of our panelists said a moment ago, you need to research. You need to know for yourself who the candidates are on the ballot. Stop listening to folk and getting misinformation. Know it for yourself. And there are many ways. Google is our best friend. So use her, okay? Use her. If you need to speak to Alexa at the house, call her and ask her, what is it that you need to know about a particular candidate? Pull that person up for me. That's what I will have you to do today. Then you need to identify at least 3 polling locations near you. And why do we say that? You might go there and it's so crowded, and you heard someone say another location, oh, that line is moving. Well, more than likely, you probably want to go over there, but I want to tell you this. If all the lines are hanging out the door and around the corner, I need you to stand. You stand as though it's the last day you have to stand. It's just that critical. And we keep saying that over and over again. So where do we go with the 4th? I have the required ID. Ms. LeBeau just shared with you the options you have in the IDs you can use. So know that. Don't get all the way over there and you don't have the ID. And now you have to turn around and go back, especially if you're coming from work and you're running out there. Because first of all, I know everybody in the room is going to do early voting. So we're not going to wait till November the 5th at 6:59 p.m. We can't afford to do it. Okay? So Monday, I need you to beat me to the poll. Okay? Straight line, straight line. Okay, what do we have for number 5? I have identified the day or date I'm going to the polls. And everybody in here, are we early voting? Yes. I don't want to mess around on November the 5th and it's flooding. That's right. To ask them to vote at the church house, the schoolhouse, the back house, whatever house it is. Please reach out and touch somebody so they can get to the polls with you. Do you understand? Do you understand? Okay, I'm gonna say that again. Do you really understand? Yes, it's just that important. We want to be the members at the church house today. All right?
I am
very excited and thankful to all of you for coming out, those of you who came for the parade. Our Social Action Committee is absolutely awesome. They did this, they work countless hours to make sure your voice is heard. So please, please, make your voice heard and go to the polls. Thank you again for coming.